Law ever become a reality in America? Some fear any nuclear, biological, or chemical attack on U.S. territory might trigger just that. And as KSLA News 12's Jeff Farrell discovered, the clergy would help the government with potentially their biggest problem, us.
From my cold, dead hands.
Charlton Heston's famous declaration captures a truly American value, the overarching desire to protect our freedoms. But gun confiscation is exactly what happened during the state of emergency following Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans. U.S. troops also arrived, something far easier to do even now thanks to last year's elimination of the 1878 Posse Comitatus Act. That forbid U.S. troops from policing on American soil. If martial law were enacted here at home, like depicted in the movie The Siege, easing public fears and quelling dissent would be critical. And that's exactly what the clergy response team, as it's called, helped accomplish in New Orleans.
Jeff, the primary thing that we say to anybody is let's cooperate and get this thing over with, and then we'll settle the differences once the crisis is over.
Such clergy response teams would walk a tightrope between the needs of the government versus the wishes of the public.
In a lot of cases, these clergy would already be known in the neighborhoods in which they're helping to defuse that situation.
For the clergy, one of the biggest tools that they will have in helping calm the public down or obey the law is the Bible itself, specifically Romans 13.
Because the government is established by the Lord, and that's what we believe in the Christian faith. That's what's stated in the Scripture.
Civil rights advocates believe the amount of public cooperation may depend largely on how long they expect a suspension of their rights might last. Jeff Farrell, KSLA News 12 reporting.
And according to Tuberville, during Hurricane Katrina, the clergy response team provided 38 chaplains a day around the clock at 8 different camps.
Just when you thought you were in a safe space in a community church with a man of God, men close to God, in a structure built strictly for God. Well, then there comes FEMA, Department of Homeland Security, what they have spawned many, many years ago. Something called the clergy response teams. These clergy response teams are responsible for following the directives of the federal government in supposed times of emergencies. Just as the entire world was locked down, industries closing, private sectors folding, well, so did the churches across the United States and the world for that fact. In the reopening of these churches, as the churches were going broke due to parishioners not being present, many of them were offered, very least many were offered 50 grand, if not more. With that, so formed a partnership. It's called the Center for Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships, and under these new partnership, so come the directives to tell your flock what to do in times of emergencies. Have them be obedient. Tell them obedience to government is obedience to God. And if they don't follow, then they're disobeying not just the government, but God. Here's a perfect example of what I'm talking about.
Let's jump into Romans 13. For whoever resists authorities resists what God has appointed. Those who resist will incur judgment. So here's the big idea. We worship God practically. How do you worship God practically? By being subject to the government. Right. This applies to you. All right. So what I thought were my God-given rights became very clear. No, they were government-given rights. And I was not in the same government that I had grown up under, and I no longer had those rights. Whoever resists, and the word here is antitasso. That's what God does when he sets things in order. To resist government authority is to be anti-tasso. It's to actually be against God's action of setting things in order. You're actually going against what God has set up when you are resisting government authority. Here's the big idea, that government isn't arbitrary, but thought out with orderliness and methodicalness by God. So pay your taxes. Pay to all what is owed. The word pay here means to make repayment. And he says what's owed, that's an indebted obligation. So our debt is based not on what authorities have done or do. Our debt is based on the order that God established. We have a debt that we need to repay to authorities. How many of you took a shower in the last week and had clean water coming out of your pipe? Who's doing all that for you? The government. We have a debt to repay to our government. You are stamped with American privilege. And just enjoy it. Thank God for it. But what can the government take from you? Can they take your money? Sure they can. Can the government take your guns? Yes, they can. They gave you the right to have it. And if they want to change the Constitution, they can take that away.
You do not have a biblical, God-given right to bear arms.
I'm out of it. This is the last time I'm coming to this church. Right. If I'm coming with my guns.
Right. Right.
Can they take your property? Absolutely they can.
Right.
You ask anybody that's serving in the military.
Right. That's right.
We live in a very right-driven society, but I want you to realize the rest of the world doesn't think like you. Government leaders are owed respect and honor because of the authority that God has given. And we honor them by not speaking evil of them and by praying for them, whether we agree with them or not. To see our president get mocked, he's worthy of honor on 2 counts because he's been given the authority of President of the United States. What he does or not, he's worthy of respect and honor because God has given him that authority. And he's worthy of the respect and honor of an older man.
Now we know, in times of crises is also the times finally form the New World Order, and having their Judas goats do it. For World at War, I'm Dean Ryan.